Most of us growing up were told not to judge. At least I know I was. A lot of people were, whether it was from school or church or whatever it might be. And it's kind of led today to now this weird interpretation of it throughout the Christian church where we don't judge or discern anything. And if you do, it's frowned upon. Stay in your lane, but don't talk bad about things that I'm doing. But the question is, I wonder if the Bible has a different interpretation of this. Is judging really a sin? Well, today we're going to dive into it, and let me tell you, there is a little bit more nuance there when it comes to the subject of judging. Okay, so let's dive into it. Judging in itself isn't really like a good or a bad thing, it's just a thing. Judging is a verb, but a verb in and of itself can't really be bad or good typically. So with judging, we kind of see that displayed in the Bible here, where there's a lot of examples of judging. Some examples are frowned upon and some examples are celebrated. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, and hopefully we can all agree on that. What's become popular today in Christian circles are all the negative versions of judgment. So let's kind of go through some of those first from the Bible and then see if there's any good that we can do with judging as well. But starting with the bad, we got to start with Jesus himself, and this is probably the biggest verse, or at least the most popular verse there is about judging others, and this is in Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. Jesus says, "Judge not, that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use it, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite." Wow, so very straightforward there. As we can see, we read that and we say, okay, judging bad, Or there's also a chapter in Romans from Paul. And Paul says in Romans chapter 2, verse 1, "For in passing judgment on another, you condemn yourself, because you, the judge, practice the very same things." So as you can notice, these two verses about judging have something in common, and that is hypocrisy, right? So with Jesus' passage and with Paul's, we both see examples of hypocrisy with the judgment. It's cases where somebody is trying to correct someone when they themselves are not excelling in that area either. And I hope we can all agree on that is a pretty sucky thing to do as a person. We don't want to be trying to correct or rebuke somebody if we ourselves are dealing with that thing as well, obviously. I mean, hypocrisy is something the Lord frowns upon, and it's very clear by these two passages. Another example of negative judgment can be found in the book of James. James chapter 4, verse 11. James says, "Do not speak evil against one another, brothers. The one who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge." So this one more refers to not quite hypocrisy, but rather slander. When we are making a judgment, we have to ask ourselves, what is the end goal of this? Is it to put somebody down? And that's exactly what was happening here with the community that James is talking to, which is mainly Jewish believers within Jerusalem. And they were doing just that. And if you look at chapter 4, right at the beginning, about 10 verses earlier, you can see that James literally says he's trying to stop them from quarreling and fighting with one another, and it's leading to sin happening, including this type of slander where they're talking evil against each other, trying to put each other down. So you can see that judging is the verb, but they've partnered it with something that's evil and something that's not from God, that's a sin. And obviously it taints the judgment. It's saying, okay, you're just doing this to try to build yourself up and put somebody else down. But what's become bad in the Christian church is we'll take those 2 or 3 verses that we just covered, and that'll be it. We won't look anywhere else in the Bible regarding judgment. We'll say, you know what? Just all judgment is bad. We shouldn't judge. Maybe we shouldn't even discern because it might be offensive. You know what? Just live your truth. You go your lane, I'll go mine, and hopefully we'll both end up in heaven. As we'll see with some of the positive examples of judging, it should be out of a place of wanting to help. It should be out of a heart that says, I care about that person. You're doing something that's going to be hurtful to you in the long run, and I'm here to try to help and correct you so that you don't continue to hurt yourself by doing this. If you don't believe me, let's look back on that exact verse and passage where Jesus is talking about it the first time with the speck in the eye. That's back in Matthew chapter 7. So going back to verse 4 in that, he says, "Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly or clearly enough to take the speck out of your brother's eye. So isn't it interesting there? Jesus doesn't condemn the actual judgment side of it. He condemns the hypocrisy with it. So he's saying, actually, it is a good thing to want to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Just make sure your eye is clear first, or else you're going to be a hypocrite. He's actually affirming judging in the way of we're caring for one another. We're trying to help them. And guys, we have to stop believing that correction is not love. Correction is love. It's just a hard truth. We have to grow up a little bit and say, you know what? Not all correction is out to get me. But with that, Jesus makes it very clear, though, that when we do judge, it has to be done carefully. Not just to try not to hurt the other person, but also because there's a weightiness to it. If you scroll back a little bit to the even earlier part of that passage, Jesus says, "For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use it, it will be measured to you." So it's funny, in the Bible, we sometimes see these universal laws when it comes to things, and this is one of them here, that if you judge, you will also be judged. It will be returned back to you. And the reason God does it like that is so that we're not careless with our judgments, because that would be a whole mess if we're just slinging 10 of these out a day with people that we know in our life. So we also better make sure that we're not also making the same mistakes in that area in our life as well. So there is a weightiness to it, which is a good thing. It helps us be more careful and only judge when we need to. So Jesus also talks more about judging too and how it can be beneficial. Here's another passage from John chapter 7, verse 23 and 24. Jesus is talking to a crowd and he says, "If a baby boy can be circumcised on a Sabbath day to obey the law of Moses, why are you angry at me for healing a person's whole body on the Sabbath day? Stop judging by the way things look, but judge instead by what is really right." Or some translations say, judge with a righteous judgment. So again, we're not saying don't judge, but it's also emphasizing there's a weightiness to it. Don't make a judgment if you haven't looked into the facts about the situation and you just kind of have a feeling or a vibe about it. That can be a great place to start, but dig a little bit deeper before you go and try to correct somebody of it. See, Jesus was trying to be corrected by people to say, hey, don't heal on the Sabbath. But he was saying, if you guys would have actually thought about that a little bit more, then you wouldn't be trying to correct me in that area. See, the Bible has a theme too where it emphasizes testing different spirits, testing all the spirits, testing everything to see if it's good or bad, if it's good or evil, if it comes from God or not. We see that emphasized in 1 Thessalonians 5:21, 1 John 4:1, and Hebrews 5:14, just to name a few different passages. So there is a big emphasis on this within the New Testament. Again, if these people would have done that with Jesus and tested it and actually looked a little bit deeper than their offense, then they would have seen that Jesus was actually in the clear on this and what he was saying was true. So let's keep going with this. Does God really want us to judge? I'd say those two passages are pretty convincing, but let's see what else the Bible has to say on it. This is another section from Jesus in the book Revelation when he's speaking to the different churches right at the beginning. It's a really cool spot. And this is Revelation chapter 2, verse 2. He's actually celebrating them for the judgments and discerning that they have done within their ministry. He says, "I know your works as well as your labor and your steadfast endurance, and that you cannot tolerate evil. You have even put to the test those who refer to themselves as apostles, but are not, and have discovered that they are false." And of course, as with all the church letters, he goes on then to say a couple things they can improve in. So it's pretty cool that the church in Ephesus had a reputation for not tolerating evil. And let me put it straight to you, if your rule about not judging causes you to tolerate evil within your ministry, within your church and congregation, then my friend, you are not doing something pleasing for the Lord. Actually, you're doing the opposite, and he is wanting to correct that. So let's finish with this. This is Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 5. He says, "It is not my business to judge those who are not part of the church. God will judge them, but you must judge the people who are part of the church. The scripture says you must get rid of the evil person among you." And he's quoting Deuteronomy from that, which is really interesting. So, based off that, we almost have a mandate for it, but I'll tell you this, we'll go a step further, because a lot of us, we make judgments, we discern, we figure out, okay, something needs to be corrected. But then the steps we do after that are bad, So the question is, what do we do then after we have judged and discerned and found that maybe somebody is doing something sinful? How do we approach them about it in our church? What do we do from there? So that's a great question. And I think there's probably two scenarios that you'll often find within a church. And we're going to go through both of them. and that'll kind of tell you how we should navigate the steps after. I'd say scenario 1 is what Paul refers to in this passage when he says the evil person among you. Get rid of the evil person among you. He's quoting Deuteronomy, but he says that for a reason. And that's not always going to be the situation, but this will happen sometimes, so this is a great thing to be prepared of. The evil person that the Bible describes are people that have twisted and rejected the truth, and they're no longer aware that they're actually practicing and promoting something sinful. So this would be one type of person that you're going to encounter. So how do we navigate that? Well, Paul actually has another section in Titus where he talks very similarly about this type of person and how to navigate it. So let's take a look at that. This is Titus chapter 1. He says, "For there are many rebellious people, idle talkers and deceivers, who must be silenced because they mislead whole families by teaching for dishonest gain what ought not to be taught. For this reason, rebuke them sharply, that they may be healthy in the faith, and not pay attention to Jewish myths and commands of people who reject the truth. Both their mind and their consciences are corrupted. They profess to know God, but with their deeds they deny him, since they are detestable, disobedient, and unfit for any good deed." Thanks. So very straightforward, right? But you can see with that type of person, there's no beating around the bush, right? He's saying you need to rebuke these people sharply and directly. And as he says in the 1 Corinthians passage, even remove them from the congregation if they're not willing to repent and change course. Because this is a serious deal. This is somebody that is deceiving people that are honest and pure, but this person themselves has become wicked and corrupted. So it's a much different approach. But as we said at the beginning, there's typically 2 types of people you'll encounter. So that's one, but probably more of the often it'll be the second type here, which Paul talks about in Galatians, at least I feel so. So this is Galatians chapter 6. He says, "Brothers and sisters, if a person is discovered in some type of sin, you who are spiritual, restore them. Restore such a person with a spirit of gentleness. Pay close attention to yourselves so that you are not tempted too." So we can see there's a big difference between this person and then the evil, wicked person we talked about before. This person is still having sin in their life, but it's a case where they're probably aware that it's wrong. They probably know what they're doing is not right. And when you bring it to them, they're humble and they're willing to repent. And you say, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't have been doing this and I need to change. This person still needs to be restored. It's not like after that conversation they're, okay, you know what? Hey, still keep your leadership position or whatnot. Obviously not. But it says we can take a spirit of gentleness with them. We can actually be a lot more calm and gentle. We don't need a harsh rebuke. But we can be gentle in restoring them, and eventually they will be restored to an even greater spot than before, right? Because that's how God works. So be aware when we're judging and discerning, make sure you have the end goal in mind and know how you're going to deal with it when that time comes, and likely you'll find yourself in one of those 2 scenarios. So let's close with this. I think we learned today being able to judge is actually a good thing. We need to judge and discern. How can we really sharpen one another if we're not able to judge and discern within each other's lives, right? So when you judge, make sure you're not being a hypocrite. Make sure it's an area you can actually help somebody with. Make sure you're not doing it to try to condemn or put them down or try to shame them. It's doing it to try to help and build them up. We're not trying to slander or speak evil of them or continue to quarrel with somebody. And with judgment, make sure too that we know the weightiness of it, because God's going to judge us as well. So we need to make sure that that's an area of our life where we are walking with the Lord in, and we're not walking in sin as well, or else God's going to hold us to that also. It's a beautiful thing. So remember that, my friends. Don't let the world tell you not to judge, not to discern between good and evil. We need your gift for that. We need you to do that, so that way we can continue to heal not only our churches, but our societies as a whole. So I appreciate you joining in today. Be sure to stay on the lookout for new videos and content coming soon. And that's about all I got. So thanks again. May the Lord bless you, and we will talk soon. Take care.